Yes, my brothers and sisters, Peter, yes, he was. Yeah, he had the right idea, but he was using the wrong weapons, because the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. That's right. If you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. But understand, this power that Jesus is giving to us is greater than any gun, it's greater than any knife, and it's greater than any curse word that can come out of our mouths. We are armed and dangerous with power, but what kind of power is this? I've already told you this is authority, that it is exousia power, but we see that this is also an offensive power. It's right here in the text. Jesus makes sure that we have this power so that we will have the upper hand. It's right here in the text. He said, behold, I give you power, I give you authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. Let me suggest to you, for those of you that are always running from the devil, Jesus never intended for us to be scared of the enemy. He never intended for us to always talk about how busy the devil is. He never intended for us to always be scared of our own shadow, because God has not given us the spirit of fear, but the spirit of love, power, and a sound mind. Let me suggest to you that this was an offensive power that gives us the cutting edge, that gives us the upper hand to trample and tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. Let me suggest to somebody tonight that this is the power that we need in this particular season, because God knew that not only would we have to deal with wolves in this season, but we also would have to face some serpents and some scorpions. Let me submit and suggest to somebody that you should be well acquainted with serpents by now, because the serpent is placed in this text to prove to us what kind of enemy we're dealing with. When I researched the topic of the serpent, I found that there's something different about the serpent that causes me to be suspicious. The reason why Jesus gave us this power, yes, over the serpents, is because you'll note that the serpent is a dangerous spirit. The serpent is a cunning spirit. The serpent is he's one of those things that will sneak up on you. We find this all throughout the Bible. In the book of Genesis, it was the serpent that showed up in the Garden of Eden and beguiled Sister Eve. But notice, if you will, he did it with his mouth. Let me submit to you that the serpent's biggest weapon is in his mouth. He uses the fangs in his mouth and his tongue to bite his subjects and to unleash his venomous poison. Yes, you'll remember it was the fiery serpents in the Old Testament that were loosed on the Israelites when they complained against their leader and complained against their God, and they were bitten by snakes until God allowed Moses to intercede on their behalf and told them that you would take a snake and put it on a pole, and anybody that looks up, he shall live. You remember it was the serpent when Paul was on the island of Malta, yes, throwing sticks on the flames, when a serpent opened up his mouth and unleashed his venom in Paul's body, refused to let him go, refused to turn him loose, and Paul had to shake the snake off. I came to tell you the dangerous thing about the serpent spirit is his mouth. It is his bite. It is the poison that is interjected in the wounds of our spirit. And God told me to tell you, he has given us authority and power over these serpents who specialize in gossip They specialize in malicious rumors. They specialize in assassinating people's character with their mouth. I wish I had a church here this morning that know there's some serpents on your job, serpents in your schoolhouse, serpents in this city, and God knows there's some serpents in the church. Have I got a witness this afternoon? Understand the serpent's secret weapon is his mouth. He would not have gotten in trouble with God if he would have just kept his mouth closed. But he opened his mouth. But Jesus said, I've given you power to tread on serpents. That's not all that he said, but I give you power to tread on scorpions. Let me suggest to you that the scorpion is the total opposite of the serpent. Yes, it's the scorpion that looks like a small lobster. Yeah, it has claws and it has a tail, and there is a poisonous stinger in its tail. God help me to preach this today. The serpent is just the opposite of the scorpion, in that the serpent uses his tongue while the scorpion uses his tail. And I came to preach to somebody this morning. God help me to say this right. But there's some people that are showing you their tail. But I want to help somebody today. Jesus knew that they were going to do that. They come from behind. They play tricks on your mind. They want to stab you in your back. They've got a nasty spirit because they've got a stinger in their tail. And God knew that we were going to have to deal with some serpents and some scorpions. He knew that there were some that would have problems with the tongue and problems with the tail. And so he said, we're going to squash all of that. I'll give you authority to trample and to tread, to walk over top of them and bruise their head with your heel. Oh, I wish I could preach it like I feel it, because somebody knows about some scorpions that showed their tail. They came from behind. They tried to smile in your face. The whole time they had a dagger in your back. But God said he knew that we would deal with this type of spirit. So I'm equipping you with the armor that you need to be able to fight the good fight of faith. I'm giving you an offensive weapon. I'm giving you offensive power so that you will be able to have power over all the power of the enemy. Yes, it's right here in the text. I see some of you looking funny, but I'm preaching from the Bible. It wouldn't be in there if he didn't want us to preach it. Yes, he said, I give you power over serpents and scorpions and over all the power. That second word for power is dunamis, meaning we have exousia power, but the enemy has dunamis power. But exousia power always trumps dunamis every time, because you have the power in your mouth to cancel the enemy's plans. You have the power in your spirit to trample on serpents and scorpions. You serve a God that sits high and looks low, that died and rose again with all power in his hands, and he's given us the keys of the kingdom. Is there anybody here today that knows who you are and you're armed and dangerous? We see here that Jesus is giving us power, and that's how we know that we are armed and dangerous.